Welcome back to Kit Connoisseurs. I'm Paul John Dykes and I'm delighted today to be joined at State of Mind Studio by my big pal, Mikey McNamara. How are you doing, big man?
I'm doing really good, Paul. Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be back here again.
It's always a pleasure, Mikey, and we're here to talk about football jerseys. There's match-worn jerseys, there's replica jerseys, and we'll talk about your love, not only of the jersey, but of this football club, Dunfermline Athletic.
Yeah.
Before I do that, you're not wearing a jersey, you're wearing this Starnia brand. Tell me a wee bit about that, first of all.
Starnia Apparel's my latest baby. Really, it launched in May this year. So it's a clothing brand inspired by indie, terrace, kind of culture and life. Starnia means star in Swedish, so something a wee bit quirky and different. So it's going okay so far. Can't quite quit the day job, but it's good. So we'll see where it goes.
No, I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. Swedish Celtic fan, Henrik Larsson.
Yeah,
there's links to Sweden at the moment with Carl Starfelt.
Yep.
What about Dunfermline? Have you ever had any Swedish links?
I don't think we have. We've had a couple of Scandinavians in the past, but I don't think we've had any Swedish players. Not that I know of. Not yet.
Now, we've mentioned the Pars already.
Yep.
You're a Dunfermline boy. You're a lifelong supporter.
Yep.
We'll talk about your fan appreciation of that club, but also your involvement with the club. Let's start off with a jersey then. This is the first one up.
So this one means a lot to me. So this is the home shirt, season 94 to 96. So back in the 90s, Dunfermline used to keep the same home shirt 2 seasons. Obviously changed days now, but this was the first Dunfermline shirt I ever owned. I got it for Christmas 1995, and I wore it till it literally fell apart, as you did when you were a kid.
Yeah.
Getting football shirts back then was quite difficult. It's not like nowadays where you've got the online side and you know, getting even shirts that weren't Dunfermline was hard. So I got this one Christmas and absolutely loved it, and it was a special season for the club. Unfortunately, we lost Norrie McCarthy that season. He died in January '96, but we went on to win the league and promotion to the Premier Division. So just a classic shirt. This is a match worn number 2, which was Jerry Farrell. This is his match worn shirt, right. Yeah. So, this is really special. And as I mentioned to you off camera, like getting a match worn back in the 90s was so special because they were different from the replicas.
Yep.
Whereas nowadays, the players are just wearing the same kind of jerseys as what you would buy in the shop. So I've brought over a replica as well, just to kind of show the differences. So
you can spot the differences immediately between the two jerseys.
Yeah, so you can see straight away from the match worn, there was an embroidered badge, which is always class. It adds that wee bit of class to a shirt. The match winner was also embroidered. As you can see on the replicas, the badge was a foam kind of badge. A material you wouldn't normally get now, because badges are more the plasticky or a woven embroidered badge. And you can see from the sponsor, the iconic landmark sponsor with Dunfermline, on the player version, it was like a sewn on cloth
Quite
patch.
heavy.
Really heavy. Whereas the replica was a foam, individual foam letters, and I remember on mine, this isn't my original, but all the letters fell off.
Exactly.
Because the more it got washed and tumble dried, and the more you wore it, everything just peeled off.
And if they lost the sponsor, you'd pick it off.
You'd pick it off, yeah.
But that's the thing that we've lost, and we'll talk about this as we go through the show, Mikey. We've lost the beauty of the replica against the match worn.
Yeah.
But back in the day, this kind of thing, once you'd worn it, it was done. You wouldn't, a lot of people did, but generally you wouldn't keep a hold of them, right? Yeah. And now there's been this upsurge in the replica market. So if you were to buy that jersey now and it's a replica, it would command a healthy fee as well.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, where does it all stop? Do you think the modern jerseys are going to hold that same allure as the older jerseys?
I don't know. The cost of a replica jersey nowadays is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Like, I was looking at buying my kids' replica Dunfermline shirts, which are not bad, £40, which is good. If you look at a Man United shirt nowadays, 70, 80 quid for a kid's football shirt. Just ridiculous. You're pricing people out of football. Mad. But going back to this one, like that was such an iconic season, and it really gave me the bug for the love of the Pars.
See, the thing with that, I'm from the town.
Yeah.
I don't support Dunfermline.
Yeah.
That's a different podcast.
Yeah.
Right? That could last a wee while. But you're aware of the goings on at the club. You always are. You always keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
You mentioned Norrie McCarthy. For anybody who's tuning into this, who's maybe a big football jersey fan, who don't really know Dunfermline or Norrie, just explain the importance of Norrie McCarthy to Dunfermline.
Yeah. So he was massive. Norrie owned 2 pubs in the town as well, with John Watson, who's a club legend as well. But Norrie's the highest appearance holder. I think 576 games. Now, he signed in 1982, 83, right up until January 96. He was just an iconic leader. You know, you ask any former player, I'm involved with the Former Players Association, we do a podcast, and they always mention Norrie, like how important he was in the dressing room, on the pitch. He was just a real leader. A bit of a funny guy, played a lot of pranks on players, and just loved. And then, like I say, he owned pubs in the town, so he's well loved.
Yeah.
Throughout, not just the football people, but throughout
You'd see him standing there at places like the Eastport and Nikos, which is no longer with us.
Yeah.
And he had that Mauser classic moustache. And the thing with Norrie, he was a captain, but they signed him from Cownbeath.
Yeah.
I think it was Pat Stanton that signed him.
Yeah,
and
correct,
if you can imagine that, Mikey, your captain, your leader, you lose him under tragic circumstances midway through a season. You go on to win promotion.
I know.
Great memories.
We done it for him. It was an unbelievable season. The next shirt I'll talk about was really important that season as well. But going back to Norrie, I remember me and my dad being in the high street. We actually bumped into him outside Eastport a week before he died. I always remember it. And he was such a powering big guy, and just looking up at him. And aye.
He was immaculate, eh?
Aye.
Always immaculate. Who do you think he is? Is it Norrie when you look at that?
Aye, but a lot of other players. Jackie McNamara.
Yep.
This was his last shirt before he signed for Celtic. Jerry Farrell, like you say.
Wee Jerry. Jerry's been in the studio. I'm going to throw a name in. Kenny Ward.
Kenny Ward, yeah. Kenny's a local guy in Dunfermline. We've actually got him as guest of honour at the Falkirk game the next couple of weeks.
Great guy.
Andy Smith, Stuart Petrie, Mark Miller, Ivo Den Beeman.
And Dick and Bert.
Dick and Bert. And what's mad for me now, like my opportunity working at the club and doing stuff for the former players, like I know a lot of these guys, these were my heroes. I had their pictures on my bedroom wall. Now they're my mates. It's like so surreal.
It's phenomenal.
Aye,
there's going to be loads of name dropping in this 1 hour or so, Mikey. So feel free to let's have a look at another jersey. We're moving on to the second jersey, Mikey, and would you call this a Harlequin away jersey? Same season as the last one we looked at.
It was known at the time as the Battenberg shirt because that kind of the square square pattern. But this one is another match worn. It's number 6 in the back, which was Mark Miller. Really good guy, good player for Dunfermline.
Was his nickname Taz?
Taz it was. I won't say why.
Was it for on the park or off the field?
I think it was probably both. But Mark's a really good guy. I keep in touch with him quite a bit now. So this was his match worn. So again, this was away top to the one we mentioned previous. But again, we had this for 2 seasons. You know, Dunfermline at the time kept shirts for 2 seasons for some reason. Obviously, you think commercially now, like there's so much money to be made with replica, so it doesn't really make sense to keep a shirt for 2 seasons. But this one's iconic, mostly 95-96 again, because we had a game, second last game of the season up at Tannadice. And that season we'd lost Norrie, as we discussed. Dundee United were heavy favourites for the league. And we went up there and we beat them 1-0, Stuart Petrie scored. And that basically won us promotion to the Premier League. And this was the shirt they wore that day. So it's really iconic. The other thing is, speaking about Norrie, his last game for Dunfermline was at Love Street against St Mirren, and this was the shirt we wore. And I think he actually scored that day as well.
I remember a story that they're coming back from Paisley on the coach, and Kenny Ward, who I mentioned before, was given a mixtape by Norrie McCarthy. This is the 80s, ladies and gentlemen. It was a proper mixtape because Norrie used to do the music on the bus, apparently. And he gave Kenny Ward this mixtape, and Kenny hadn't heard the mixtape when he heard the news that Norrie had passed.
Right.
So obviously it's got resonance now, all these years later, and Kenny told us that story.
Shame he can't play it now because there's no devices to play it.
I know. Well, maybe my car's got one of them, Mikey. But I mean, I'm looking at this jersey, and I think that, you know, there's so many things that draw me to this particular era.
Yeah.
You've mentioned the embroidered badge. This one doesn't have the patch for the sponsor, but it's got the embossed landmark. Yeah. What's the kind of history up to this stage of sponsorship with the Pars? Because I mean, some of these clubs didn't go for sponsorship on the jerseys until the 1980s.
Yeah, yeah.
But the Pars were a wee bit earlier than that.
Aye, we had our first sponsor, I think, 1979 maybe. The old Buckter shirts, the classic Buckter. So around about the same time, Hibs had the famous Buckter sponsor. We were kind of similar. And then going into the 80s, we had various sponsors. We had Alu Glaze, the double glazers.
Yep.
We then had Thompson's World of Furniture. And then Landmark came on the scene. Really when Jim Leishman's team started to get to the Premier League and things were going incredible. Landmark were there for 10 seasons. So really iconic for Dunfermline fans. Like, it's probably the most iconic sponsor. But yeah, like you say, the players' ones had the foam letters on this one, but the embroidered badge. And what's unique about this, and again, getting a match worn in the 90s was so special because the differences. But a long sleeve shirt.
I know.
Like, you couldn't buy long sleeve shirts. Like, so to get one of these was incredible. Obviously, it's got the SFL League patches, which I think came in about 94, 95.
Short-lived. But you're right about the long sleeve.
Yeah.
You ever saw anyone at a game with long sleeves back in the 80s and into the 90s?
Yeah.
You knew it was a match-worn jersey.
Aye. I was always fascinated if I seen someone in the terraces wearing long sleeved. Because
And
like
also,
you said, you knew it was a player's shirt.
yeah, and very few players wore long sleeves.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, so they're like hen's teeth.
Yeah.
And when you look at this particular jersey, as you say, a couple of years you stayed with this particular design.
Yeah.
But there was one slight change. Go and explain
was.
what happened to match winner.
So we won the league 95-96, promotion to the Premier Division. In Dunfermline, we changed the home kit that following season. But we kept this as our away kit. However, the provider of the kits the following season was Lecoq Sportif, the French company. So we had the exact same shirts, but the match winner was covered with a Lecoq Sportif triangle.
Which was never available to buy, I don't think.
I don't think so. And the strange thing, match winner must have got bought over by Lecoq Sportif, because I still remember that season, some players would still have match winner, or their shorts would have match winner, top Lecoq Sportif, but Intersport at the time, Dunfermline, who sold the club shirts, were still selling this version of the shirt. So aye, you just would never get that.
You'd see it, you wouldn't see it. No. Another shop in Dunfermline that did the jerseys was Parker's.
Parker Sports,
remember Parker's?
Yeah, I do.
As well. I'm looking at the logo, I'm looking at your logo.
Yeah.
In the future, would it be a bit of an ambition for you to make a jersey for the Pars?
100%. Something similar to that, watch this space, but I'm doing a little project just now with the Norries, who's a local kids football club, which was set up after the death of Norrie McCarthy. And it's basically trying to help kids in youth football. So my mate, Matt Kilgannon, his wee boy plays for them. So I'm working on something just now that's quite special. So watch this space.
Like to hear it.
Yeah,
you want to look at another jersey?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Now, we've been talking about the black and white stripes, the parallel lines of Dunfermline, but this is a different version and for a different club. But there is a Pars link.
Yeah.
Talk to me about Andrea Skeller.
Wow, what a legend. So we signed Andrea Skeller in the summer of 2000. We just got promotion to the SPL, and he was a kind of star signing, come from PSV Eindhoven, who at that point, you know, were a Dutch powerhouse. You know, guys like Van Nistelrooy and Mark van Bommel, and I think the original Ronaldo had just left 2 seasons before that. So he was a big signing for us, and I was fortunate enough to get to know him quite well when he was here. And even to this day, he's a great guy. Still would do anything to help the Pars, and aye. So I was lucky enough to get this shirt from him.
It's beautiful, Mikey. Was it the link with Jimmy Calderwood that allowed him to tap into the Dutch market back then? Because he had managed in the Netherlands for a few years before coming to Dunfermline.
100%. At that point, we had signed Andreas from PSV. We signed a goalkeeper, Marco Rutenbeek, from Go Ahead Eagles. The following season, we had Jack de Geer.
Jack to go. Unbelievable. If only he had stayed a bit longer, who knows what he would have done. We had loads of Dutch boys at that point. Youssef Rossi came in. He was Moroccan, but he played in Holland, so Jimmy knew him from his time there. And again, who knows what would have happened if that had gone all right. If he had screwed the nut, as you would say in Scotland, right? With him and Skeller, I mean
incredible.
That was an incredible backline that you had. And I think when you look at this jersey again, I always love PSV. It doesn't look right these days if you don't have Phillips. We know it was the Phillips team.
Iconic again,
Phillips, SV Eindhoven. It's signed by the great man.
It is indeed,
Let's have a wee look at the back. What number's on it?
So the back is his squad number when he was at PSV Eindhoven, which was number 30. This is actually a match worn they played in the Champions League. You can see the Champions League patch as well, the classic felt Champions League ball. They played Benfica wearing this. He also played against Kaiserslautern that year, 98-99 Champions League, so unreal. And his international career, you know, Lithuania. We spoke to him recently on the podcast that I do, and you know, he's played against the best, Thierry Henry, Anelka, David Villa, you know, just name after name for his national team. So
he was a standout for Dunfermline, and I think at that time the club, within a short space of time, got to 3 finals.
Yep.
And he was almost an absolute hero. He was a hero anyway, but he was almost a hero against Celtic. I don't know if you want to talk about that at some stage. But you've mentioned the podcast that you do. Tell us a wee bit more about that.
Yeah, so I'm involved with the Dunfermline Athletic Former Players Association. I help them out doing their monthly magazine. We've also started a podcast now. So the whole point of the Former Players Association is to raise money to give back to the club. We've just donated over $7,000 to the club from a recent event we had. And what that'll do, it's buying kit for the physio, it's buying equipment for the new training ground, you know, so it's just trying to contribute our way. But the big thing for me is getting former players back involved with the club and reminiscing and really thinking, you know what, that was a special time in my life and that club means a lot to me. You know, we've managed to get, you know, when I worked at the club, we got Mark Miller back, we got Derek Fleming, Jerry Farrell. All these guys had been away for 20 odd years. And now they're back, looking at the Dunfermline results, coming to games. Derek Fleming brings his wee boy now. We've got Ryan Hegarty, he's a season ticket holder. You know, just fantastic.
You need to keep that link, Mikey. And I think, you know, you and I met through fundraising for the Pars back in 2012. And I need to mention the help that this big fella gave to us during that fundraising effort. And I mean, he was sending over match-worn jerseys from various clubs he had played with. And they commanded big fees on the auction night, didn't they? So it's so important to keep that link with ex-players. And I think the Pars do it particularly well. Yeah,
I think a lot of other clubs, Ross County's just created a Former Players Association. Stephen Ferguson's the CEO up there, former Dunfermline player. Again, a member of our Former Players Association, good guy. I think it's the right thing to do. You know, former players, one we've just brought back actually, a guy who's been well out the scene is George O'Boyle. Now, George has been exiled by the supporters for a long time. We managed to get him on the podcast to tell his side of the story, and you know, now people are thinking, maybe we had it wrong.
What a signing! What a signing he was for Dunfermline.
Brilliant.
This is at a point, Mikey, where you're signing players from Bordeaux.
Incredible.
In the late 80s, early 90s?
Aye, 89, 90. He came in. Just incredible. The club was on such a rise, and then summer 1990, they decided to remove Jim Leishman for some bizarre reason.
That was bizarre back then, and you felt the ripples even if you weren't a Dunfermline fan. You felt the ripples 100%. All the way through the town. Let's get back to the Pars then with another jersey. We're back onto Dunfermline, and this is a home jersey from a memorable season, Mikey. You were with Avec. Home and away jerseys were cracking. I mean, the black and gold away one. But I look at that and I just think Juventus. It's just class. What's your memories of this jersey?
Well, quite a lot. Again, a long sleeve one, which couldn't buy. And I remember this season, being 9-10 years old, writing to the club asking where can I get a long sleeve shirt. So I love long sleeve shirts, and Bert Payton actually wrote back to me and said, I'll try my best, son, but I don't know if I can get them. But years later I managed to get one, and this one's actually Andy Smith's, the number 9 on the back, and Andy was in top form that season on. He got a Scotland B cap. But going back to the shirt, made by a French company, Avec, who we had for 3 seasons I think. And what's special to me about this one, I only ever got the Dunfermline shirt at Christmas or my birthday. That was it. This is the first one I got on the open day. Full kit. Again, wore it till it fell apart. I remember queuing outside East End to buy it on the day in the blazing sunshine, as it always was in the 90s. But again, iconic landmark sponsor. And what's unique about this is the club decided to go for a gold badge.
Yes, I was going to ask you about this. What's your thoughts on tinkering with the club crest?
I wouldn't tinker too much, but I do quite like nowadays that they go for the single colour or the option for just 2 colours and strip it back a little bit. I think it makes it quite trendy, especially on training kit. When I worked at Dunfermline, we introduced that on a silver away kit, and it was pretty popular. It was good.
I think you've got your crest. That's your official logo of your company, if you like, the club. But the football jerseys now have kind of lent themselves to go into the one colour. I'm a traditionalist. I like full colour embroidery, but I can see why they're doing it. And we had a conversation a couple of months back with Neil Hurd, who works for Maba, and he was talking about how Juventus have changed their logo to something that's more of it's a rebrand, and it's almost, you know, so they can put that anywhere, and it doesn't scream football crest.
Exactly,
Talk to us about the crest though, because there's a story behind why Dunfermline changed to that. Was it in the 1980s?
No, well, Dunfermline's had various badges. This is kind of the original badge, which was designed by an art teacher at Dunfermline High School, I think in the late 50s. So Jock Steen actually brought that onto the jerseys. Right. He come in late 50s, early 60s. And then it disappeared. Mid-60s on, it disappeared. And then Jim Leishman brought it back in 1986. Right. I think it's the only triangle badge in British football. So it's quite unique.
It is unique. It is unique. And that's a wee building that's in Dunfermline Glen, Pittencrieff Park.
Yeah, so the history of the badge, the tower that you can see is meant to be King Malcolm's Tower. Surrounding it's meant to represent the Glen, or Pittencrieff Park. And the grass area here was meant to represent East End Park. So that's kind of the history of it. But obviously when it was not gold, the actual version of the club badge I think has about 6 different colours. So I remember when I worked there, when we were getting shirts made, and there was always the amount of Pantone colours we had to use. So that's kind of why a lot of clubs now go to that kind of single colour. It's cheaper. It's cheaper, it looks trendy. But for me, I'm like you, I'm a traditionalist. You've got to have a coloured Pars badge on the home shirt.
6 colours is a lot though, eh?
I think it is 6 colours, aye. So again, it's totally unique, different to kind of any other club badge.
Another Pars jersey. We've just been talking about the badge, Mikey. This is that 6 colour badge you were talking about. And now that you've mentioned it, it is quite a lot of colours for a club crest, isn't it?
Yeah, so this version of the badge kind of come in 86 with Leash, and then changed in 94 with the first shirt we covered, the match winner one. They kind of changed to more like it is nowadays. But this shirt was, again, 2 seasons, 1990 to 92. Another, you can see the theme here, another long sleeve, just absolute class. Back then, no league badges on the arms, didn't exist. And a classic sponsor, obviously Landmark, but we had Umbro, absolutely amazing. We had Umbro from 86 to 93, and then we went to Hummel. But this is just one of my favourite Dunfermline shirts. It was before my time as a supporter, but the design of it and just the look and feel of it is just incredible. And
you've got the detail and the shading of the jersey that you don't see much of these days. And the famous candy stripes of Dunfermline's finest era in the 1960s as well, Mikey.
Yeah, so the story goes with this shirt. This shirt was 1990, 91, 91, 92. So Big Leash talks about this shirt. So this is one of his last involvements at the club before they randomly sacked him. So what he wanted to do, the club were on the up, the crowds were incredible. He wanted to bring back that look and feel of the 60s. So he brought back the candy stripes. Unfortunately, after that, the club were pretty poor, and we ended up getting relegated the following season under Jockey Scott. But some iconic players wearing this: Cosma, Davy Moyes, George O'Boyle, Hamish French, Billy Davis, Neil Cooper. This was actually Neil Cooper's shirt. You can see on the back.
And did they wear this jersey in the Skull Cup final against Hibs?
We did, which was a cup final we'll not talk about because we're poor. But again, the difference with replica and match worn, the player version had the embroidered badge. And on the replica we didn't have the white square for number. It was just the stripes continued. So
and that Umbro number as well.
The Umbro number, look at that. Just class.
It's just vintage 1980s. Just class. A very young Jackie would have worn that as well, and Andy Rhodes would have been your goalie.
Andy Rhodes, he was in goal. So on paper we had a good squad, but the club were just in turmoil after the whole Jim Leishman saga, unfortunately.
Now, one final question about the crest. I don't want to labour it, but tell us about you going from a fan, you're going from the terraces to the boardroom, because you had a say in the crest eventually when you were employed at the club as the general manager. So just before that, I got the job as general manager in 2016, but I got involved with the club in 2012-13 when we kind of hit the skids. And went into administration. Nice play on words.
There you go.
Into the valley, the skids.
We were in big trouble financially. The club were on their way down, all meltdown. So I got involved with a group called Pars United, and just having a marketing PR kind of background, I got involved with the social media side and the graphic design and try to promote the club and just try to improve the general look and feel. And a big part of that, when Pars United took over the club in 2013, we thought, well, we'll do a slight refresh on the badge. Nothing too drastic. So we kind of mixed elements of this version with elements of the 95-96 version, or the current version at that point, just to kind of give it a freshness and kind of new era. And here we go. So it's a bit of an honour. It was me and a graphic designer at work, Stephen. We kind of sat down and Stephen mapped out on his computer screen, and it's still used to this day.
Exactly, and I'm looking forward to the day on a Pars kit where we see the badge that you had a hand in designing and Stanya on the other side of it, or maybe even on the sponsor.
Maybe one day.
Let's hope so.
Let's hope so.
Another Pars jersey?
Let's go for it.
Now this is going back to an era that we've mentioned where Dunfermline got into 3 cup finals in a short space of time.
Yeah.
You were taking 17,000, 18,000 to Hampden Park. It just so happens that you met a very strong Celtic side on each occasion, Mikey.
Aye, an incredible Celtic team, unfortunately. But we actually beat Celtic 2 weeks prior to the cup final at Parkhead, 2-1. But unfortunately we couldn't do it in the cup final. But this was a jersey we wore in that cup final, and we actually wore it the following season. In terms of design and all the rest of it, absolute shocker. It's not a Pars strip.
So this isn't one you designed?
No, definitely not. For me, a Pars strip's black and white stripes.
This looks like it's just off the shelf.
There was so many stories at the time, and I remember the uproar when this came out. But because we're in the cup final, first cup final since 1968, there was kind of that lift and everyone was buzzing for it. So you kind of accepted it. But it's not a classic in terms of design.
Who's TFG?
So TFG, I think, were a Glasgow-based company who we had from 2000 to about 2007 before moving to Adidas. Not the best. The quality shirts were not great. Everything was really baggy and big.
Yeah.
But like I say, this shirt is iconic because it's a cup final shirt. We can see the cup final embroidery, 2004. And again, this one's signed by Andrea Skeller, who scored in this cup final. We got beat 3-1 that day because Henrik Larsson was far too good as usual.
But you gave us a fright.
Aye, we done all right. We're 1-0 up at half time. And you can see the cup final sleeve patch as well. Aye, not iconic in terms of design, but a special time to be a Pars fan. Like that, the 4 or 5 years, 3 cup finals.
I know.
Unreal.
See, when you're looking at some of the previous jerseys and you look at the sponsor, red is a colour associated with the Pars. It's often used as an away kind of jersey colour. Orange, white and blue to stay with the colours of the sponsor, Mikey. We've seen that so often. I think it just ruins the jersey.
I agree.
If that had stayed true to the colour scheme, it would have looked better.
Yep, I agree. We had REC for 4 or 5 years, and prior to this shirt, it was always in black or white writing, so it went with the design of the shirt. But yeah, I agree. When I was general manager, I was involved in the kit process, and I always wanted our sponsor to be in red, because for me, again, like you say, it's a club colour. And Landmark weren't traditionally a red, but they would put red on the shirt because it complemented the black and white. But I would agree. I would try and colour match for the club colours if it was me. But
I remember back in the day, back when we were doing the interviews for Into the Valley, the project to raise some cash, we were talking to some of the guys who played in this final.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Scott Wilson certainly played in the TFG era.
He did.
And he was slagging off the kit. He says, the tracksuits and everything, it just all seemed a bit kind of cheap. When I think about Dunfermline, I think Umbro and then obviously what's came after, but I don't remember TFG so much.
Nah, a few clubs had TFG. I think Dundee United, Kilmarnock, Falkirk all wore TFG around about that time, so they were around, and I think some English clubs had them as well. But I agree with Scott Wilson, the quality of stuff is just shambolic really. It was never a good fit, always hung off you, which is not the best. And every player seemed to wear XL shirts, no matter what size they were. So,
and it wasn't even the 90s, Mikey, because that was a big thing in the 90s with the baggy jerseys. Although Skeller has signed it for you, it was worn by somebody else. Yeah,
so this is a player we had at the time called Sean Kilgannon, who we actually signed from Middlesbrough, I think in 2002. I don't think Sean played that game, but he was an unnamed substitute, he didn't play. But I lucky enough to have a match, well, not match worn, but a player issue shirt from the cup final. And I've actually got another one of these in my house, signed by Skeller, but it's framed, which did have his name on the back, so there we go.
So it's got great memories for me as a Celtic fan, right? But as I say, when I look at Dunfermline, I want to see the candy stripes, and I think the next jersey is a classic example of that. When you think of the classic jerseys out there, Mikey, Celtic are the green and white hoops. You think about the black and red of AC Milan, and with the Pars, for me, this is the classic jersey.
Unbelievable shirt, this one. So this is original from the 60s.
Look at that. You can see that it's been washed for years.
So many times.
You look at the cuffs.
They probably wore this to training as well for years to come. So originally this would have been a black collar and black cuffs. So this shirt was used from roughly 1966 to about 1974. You know, they never changed kits back then. It was just the same kit. This is a player shirt with a red number 4 actually and stitched onto it. It's like a cloth number.
Yep.
And during this era, we had a centre half called Jim Fraser, who would have worn number 4. So this would have belonged to him. I was lucky enough to get this shirt from a guy called Dougie Hill, whose dad had a laundrette called Hill's Laundry on Holbeef Road in Dunfermline, and Dougie's dad used to wash all the players' kits. So this is one he had left in his loft, and he said to me, if you want to have this, then you're more than welcome.
That's incredible. What a gesture.
Unbelievable. But again, like you say, the candy stripes, like this is iconic. What an era this was for Dunfermline. Like the most glorious time in their history. You know, starting with Jock Stein and winning the cup and playing in Europe, and you know, 3 cup finals, 2 Scottish Cup wins, Europe just about every single season.
Yeah.
European Cup semi-final, beat just by Bratislava, who went on to beat Barcelona in the final. Like, we're so close.
That's insane.
So this shirt could have been worn in European games. It probably was, because back then players would have had one jersey. You know, it's not like nowadays where they've got multiple short sleeve, long sleeve, whatever.
I know.
It's a classic, and it's made by Buckter.
Yeah.
Who are a classic sponsor, a lot of 60s and 70s jerseys.
And they were kind of forerunners to sponsoring, as you say, Scottish football teams. The first Scottish team that ever had a sponsor was Hibs, and of course it was Buckter. And they need to have an alternative jersey for when the games were shown on TV, because you couldn't advertise on your jersey at that time. But Buckter, Umbro, and Adidas were the 3 names, and then you start getting Lecoq Sportif coming into the equation, names. And you get some of the like Hummel in the 80s coming into it. But Buckter were the makers of European Cup winners, and you know, to have Dunfermline in the 60s would have been something of a coup for them as well.
Aye, unreal shirt, to be fair. And one quirky thing, we had this would have been our league shirt 67-68, the year we won the cup. But in the 60 cup final against Hearts, the shirt was a one-off unique shirt. And the pinstripes are actually different. We've got a central pinstripe, and the shirt was made by Umbro.
Really?
Not a lot of people know that. But when I worked as general manager, we redesigned that kit on the anniversary. It was the 50th year, called the Lap of Honour. And some of the players, Bert Payton, Alec Edwards, Tommy Kilgannon, all had their original shirts. And they brought them in, and that's when you seen the label was different. The stripes were different.
It's incredible.
So
you look at Celtic, for example, wore Umbro from the 30s for 70 years.
Yeah.
But in those early days, right into the 1960s, it was a shirt deal, but we were still buying the jerseys from the manufacturers. So there was no replica shirt market back then. No. But I mean, this jersey for me should always be available in a retro kind of version of some description.
100%. If I had a say still, I would certainly be selling it in the club shop. But I just think of the legends that were involved with this: Roy Barry, John Lunn, the 2 Callaghan brothers, Alec Edwards, Jackie Sinclair, Charlie Dixon, Harry Melrose. Like, as a Dunfermline fan, these guys are all iconic. And like I say, it was such an unreal era for the club, like the halcyon days, as they call it. But in the early 70s, we still had this shirt, but all these guys had kind of moved on, and the club were going downhill pretty quickly. But again, me, if I was designing a shirt, this is what I would always want.
That's your starting point, isn't it?
100%.
Next up is another Dunfermline jersey. It's another TFG jersey, Mikey. And I've got to say, I prefer this one to the last TFG that we looked at, because it's the reintroduction of these stripes, but there's a story to this.
There is. Again, talking about TFG, quality of this shirt, poor, really poor. But I actually designed this shirt when I was a college student, so this was meant to be the shirt we had in the cup final. However, the club at the time had messed things up, and it was too late for the cup final. So we decided, getting to the cup final, we're in UEFA Cup the following season, so we thought we'll do a European shirt, and this is the one we went with. So yeah, like I say, I designed this one. This is a player issue shirt, which was unique because the actual replica one had the UEFA Cup embroidery on it.
Right.
But the players' one that they wore in the UEFA Cup didn't have the embroidery.
Strange decision.
Bizarre. But yeah, this is a match worn. This was a guy who's a good mate of mine now as well, Richie Burn. Really decent guy. We signed him from Shamrock Rovers in Ireland. This was his jersey. The game itself, we were playing an Icelandic team called Hafnarfjordur. And as usual with Scottish football clubs, pumped out the early round. But the thing with this shirt and that campaign is we had a plastic pitch at the time, if you remember, which was UEFA gold standard and all the rest of it. We got to the UEFA Cup and then UEFA turned around and said we couldn't play on it.
So did you go to Perth?
We played in Perth at McDermott Park on a wet Tuesday night, I think it was, or Thursday night, and got pumped out. But it's special to me, this shirt, because I had a hand in designing it. I think I was only 18, 19 at the time. And it brought back a kind of more iconic design for a Pars shirt. And we brought back the shorts and socks as well, were similar to the 60s one. The socks with the red and black band at the top. Yeah,
I mean, you spoke about that in the previous jersey, how you would bring back these candy stripes, which you have done. I mean, to have had a hand in the redesign of the badge, to design a jersey, to work for the club, Mikey. You've lived your dreams. You've just never played for them yet.
I know.
And I say yet.
There's no time yet. I'm 35 now, I'm retired. But I've been proper lucky, really lucky. Great experiences, and obviously to be general manager was, what an honour that was.
You were on my ticker tape on Sky Sports that day.
I know. I've actually got that printed and framed in my bar at home. It's one of these surreal moments. But 2.5 years I was at Dunfermline as general manager, and good experiences and bad. But the experience of doing it and, living the dream, really. Just class.
We're going international, Mikey.
Yes.
And of course, this jersey here, some great memories. Euro '96. It was an amazing campaign.
Yeah.
But what I'm going to say about this jersey here is this is how you use tartan in a football shirt. Beautiful.
I love this shirt. This was the first Scotland shirt I had, and I didn't even get out of a sports shop. A boy in our street, I used to get his hand-me-down football shirts if they weren't falling apart, and I got this full kit, and again I wore it so much, and it always used to give you a bit of nipple rash with the badge and the umbro bit. But like you say, Euro '96, the first tournament I can remember watching in Scotland. And I still remember watching it with my dad in the living room, the Holland game at Villa Park, and obviously the England game. And then nearly doing it, beating Switzerland. But just an iconic Scotland jersey. And a good mate of mine, Gav Richardson, collects Scotland jerseys. He's got a phenomenal collection of these match worn as well. As you can see there, long sleeves again. And it's got the yellow number 13 on the back.
The yellow shouldn't work, but it does.
It does, really does.
Like if you're sitting there designing this, you would think, although there is a wee trim on the collar, but it works really well with the yellow numbers.
Really well, really well. And again, at that time, the replicas had a woven badge, but it was different from the players' one. So this is kind of like a woven badge, but then an embroidered badge on top of it. Yeah. So again, it was quite unique having a player version to a fan version. But yeah, it's again, you look at the players Scotland had under Craig Brown at that time. Like, what a squad! John Collins, Sally McCoy, McAllister, Andy Gorham, Tom Boyd, like Colin Calderwood. Like, what a squad! Like
wee Jackie.
Was just coming through, aye.
I loved when they went back to this kind of 1980s Umbro,
like
down the sleeves. That was cracking. As I say, that's risky to use tartan. We've seen some horrendous examples. Greenock Morton home and away, I thought were terrible. Celtic have tinkered with it with away jerseys, but they just nailed it. I mean, there's greens in there. There's obviously the purple trims. There's a lot of colours going on. But it's subtle.
And again, I'm touching at the next jersey, but I just think Colin Hendry and the whole Braveheart thing of that era, like, just so special. And as a kid growing up watching Scotland, you just thought, we'll get to tournaments all the time. And as you know, it's been
a little bit more difficult.
20 odd years of getting back to a Euros and obviously a World Cup, we're still waiting. So
Now, that is signed. There's a signature on that.
It's signed in black ink, but I can't quite make it out, but I think it's maybe Stuart McKimmie who played for Aberdeen. But not 100% because good old footballers thinking using a black Sharpie on a dark design would work.
It's a classic jersey and a great use of the purple.
Yeah.
One more shirt and it's another Scotland one.
Another belt.
Shall we check it out?
Let's go for it.
Another Scotland jersey.
Yeah.
Number 5. You spoke about Braveheart before.
Yeah.
Tell me a wee bit about this.
So this isn't a match one. It's just a replica version, but iconic again. France '98, the last World Cup we went to. Like, just unreal. And the main guy at that point for me was Colin Hendry. He was so iconic. The blondie, gingery, long hair and the Braveheart thing. And
the hair never changed.
Never changed. And again, I love the design of this. It's got the tartan touch in the woven badge.
And at the edge of the sleeves.
I didn't actually have this shirt as a kid, but I remember you could buy this in JGB long sleeved, which was unknown at the time. Like we said before, you could buy long sleeved. But this is a replica. It's actually signed by Colin. It's one I mean to get framed. And it's also got the detail of the World Cup embroidery on it, the number 5, and then it's got his name, sadly peeling off a wee bit there, and the number 5. And obviously that World Cup we opened the campaign against Brazil, which I remember watching as well in the sunshine.
Tom Boyd OG.
Tom Boyd, yeah, we're so close. Like another campaign, we were nearly there, but not quite.
I'm looking at a couple of things on this jersey. So Umbro for me is the double diamond logo. But for various reasons they've changed that over the years, and at this point there's absolutely no double diamond other than this tiny wee detailing on the label. Adidas obviously used to be the trefoil, Mikey. They don't do it on football jerseys, much to the annoyance of many collectors. What's your thoughts on that? Should you always go back to the classic logos?
I would, and obviously Umbro now have gone back to that. With clubs like Hearts have got Umbro, which all their stuff looks tremendous. But I can get that at the end of the 90s, what to like rebrand and modernise it, I suppose. But Umbro's quite famous for Scotland. You know, we had Umbro since the 70s, I think, maybe even the 60s. Up until I think we got Fila in the early 2000s under the Bertie Volks kind of era. But for me, Umbro and Scotland just go hand in hand, and some classic designs over the years.
Well, Mikey, it's been an absolute pleasure to run through 10 of your favourite jerseys, and hopefully you can come back with another 10 in the future.
Mate, I could be here for hours. But it's been a pleasure.
Cheers, buddy.